Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 10 of the Patel and Kumar Show. I'm your host, Shivam Patel, coming to you live from San Antonio, Texas. And my co-host, Mr. Kumar, coming to you live from Mumbai, India. Mr. Kumar, I cannot tell you how excited I am for the show today. We have special guest, ESPN front office insider Bobby Marks is going to be joining us just in a few minutes, Mr. Kumar. I cannot tell you how much I've been waiting for this. How are you doing?
I am doing on top of the world, considering the news around in India is not so good because the number of COVID cases are rising day by day. And of course, most of the country is under lockdown. But I'm pretty sound and safe. And I hope all our viewers, their families, they're doing great as well. I just pray that everybody stays safe, wear your mask, socially distance yourself. That's the only way possible to break this chain. But as you said, I am super excited to be here tonight because we're going to have Bobby Marks, the ESPN NBA insider, and of course, the assistant GM of the Brooklyn Nets, who's going to be with us very, very shortly. And of course, we're going to also talk a little bit about the NBA news and moving on to the Indian Tadka section to end the show. So let's get on with our show, Mr. Patel.
All right. Yep. I'm ready, Mr. Kumar. So Bobby Marks is going to be joining us, like I said, in a few minutes. And before then, just quickly talking about, some NBA games that, happened last night. Of course, the Warriors ended up falling to the Washington Wizards. Steph Curry didn't have the best game last night. It was a tough loss for them. The New York Knicks, Mr. Kumar, beat the Atlanta Hawks. The Knicks are on an 8-game winning streak. So we're also going to be asking Bobby Marks about the New York Knicks. And the Miami Heat beat my San Antonio Spurs, Mr. Kumar.
Oh, well, I'm sure you're happy for the San Antonio Spurs. They're slowly climbing into that, play-in tournament. And I'm gonna admit that I'm a fan of the Spurs just because of you. But I just hope
I appreciate that.
The good news is that Anthony Davis might be making a comeback against the Dallas Mavericks tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see how he feels. He's been saying he's been 100%, and I can't wait to have LeBron back as well because it's going to be a formidable three with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Andre Drummond.
Oh, man, we're going to see the Lakers at full strength, Mr. Kumar. They're going to be the healthiest coming at the end of the season at the right time into the playoffs, while other teams are still, battling injuries. Of course, we know Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets. Damian Lillard came back last night. So we'll see. Kawhi Leonard's been out for the Clippers. So there's been a lot of injuries so far, Mr. Kumar. But as we start to see these players coming back healthy, hopefully Kevin Durant and James Harden also come back for the Brooklyn Nets. But I'm very interested to see how Anthony Davis is going to look tomorrow night, Mr. Kumar.
Absolutely. And we had two scary injuries last evening with Trae Young and Danny Avdija, who had a very scary fall. So I just wish both of them get healthy soon enough so that they can be back in the lineup. And we are almost ready to welcome Bobby Marks to our show. It's going to be a very exciting show. Of course, we're going to pick his brains in terms of what happens with all these super teams. How are they able to come up with ideas to form them? And of course, the salary caps. And of course, we're going to be asking him about the Brooklyn Nets as well, because he was the former GM of the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, I want to see what he thinks about this team, Mr. Kumar, and their chances, going forward in the playoffs. He's going to take us behind the scenes on the free agency negotiations. Because we're going to show an intro video, for Bobby Marks, but he was part of, he was a former assistant GM of the Brooklyn Nets. He was since 2010, Mr. Kumar, and he was part of 2 Eastern Conference championship teams. So he knows how to build successful teams and the teams that develop that go far in the playoffs, Mr. Kumar.
Absolutely. Come on, let's bring him on.
Further ado, Bobby Marks.
Julius Randle, Kevin Knox, Dennis Smith was a cap. So normally in a situation, you'd have to get within 125% of Lowry's number, which is about $24 million.
Welcome to the second half of the season. Here are some of the storylines to keep an eye on.
The first one right now is Rodney Hood in Portland. When you look at 2 years, $12 million.
Ladies and gentlemen, what an honor we have tonight with us, Bobby Marks, front office insider for ESPN. He's an integral part of all the free agency, trade deadlines, NBA draft coverage, and he's also the former assistant GM of the Brooklyn Nets, and he was part of 2 Eastern Conference championship teams. So, Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on today.
Yes, it's a great pleasure to have you, and we cannot wait to pick your brains in terms of what's happening with all these super teams, the salary caps, and of course a little bit about what's going to happen with the free agency next season.
Well, let's get going.
All right, let's get started. So, what other place to start is besides Steph Curry, one of the hottest players right now in the NBA. I know he didn't have that great of a game last night against the Wizards. He was being doubled most of the game. But in the past 11 games, Bobby, he's been averaging 40 points, shooting 54% from the field, 50% from three, and made 78 threes in those 11 games. And he put the Warriors in position to make the play-in tournament. So what are your thoughts about Steph Curry's performance and the Warriors' chances of being part of the playoffs this year?
Yeah, I think we'll work ourselves backwards. I think they're going to get in to the playoffs as a play-in team. Yeah. It's just a matter of who they are going to play. It could be a team like Memphis, maybe Portland. How about a Curry, Luka Doncic first round or play-in game? That would certainly be exciting. Maybe even San Antonio here. And we all knew this year was going to be a challenge comparable to last year when you lose Klay Thompson before the season started. You have relied a lot on Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre. Your rookie goes down and is out for the year in James Wiseman. And Curry has basically kind of kept this team afloat. I think you saw a lot in the game against Washington, which they recently lost. I think he was 7 for 25, struggled shooting the ball. And, the team winds up losing here. So he's been a one-man show. I put out a graphic yesterday on Twitter and Instagram where he is attempting to be the first player in NBA history to go sign 2 $200 million contracts in his span of because he's extension eligible this year to sign a 4-year, $215 million contract. So we'll see what happens in the offseason. But he has been must-see television, which is hard to do when we're talking like a mid-April regular season game here. But the game against Boston on Saturday night, Philadelphia a couple nights later, he has been probably the best Steph Curry based on how the situation is right now.
Exactly. Before you go, Mr. Kumar, I wanted to quickly echo Bobby's point about Steph Curry being must-see television. So out of the 10 most watched NBA regular season games this year, the Warriors have had 5 of them. They've been one of the most watched teams so far in the NBA. Steph Curry's been a huge reason why.
Absolutely. I mean, he's probably one of the most prolific scorers in the game today. But while we are at Steph Curry, I'm just wondering whether it's the right Golden State is the right place for him. Do you have any thoughts on whether he's going to move away from Golden State and maybe look for a championship? Because I certainly feel as the Golden State is constructed right now with the salaries and everything, I don't see them as a championship contender next season.
Well, I think how he's got another year left on his contract. As we said, he's extension eligible, which would start in 2022. Whenever you put a $200 million blank check in front of you, it's pretty hard down, especially for a player that's already won. What's he won? Three NBA already. So it's not like he needs to go somewhere and chase or form another super team somewhere in LA. For example, here. You do get Klay back. Hopefully he's healthy. You do have Draymond. Hopefully they have that draft pick from Minnesota that's protected. I think it's top 3 protected this year. Could turn out to be really good. Maybe you can use that in something else to get another player. But are they better than the Lakers or the Clippers or the Nuggets, Phoenix, Utah, probably the top 5 teams? Mm-hmm. Not right now. No. When they're healthy, I don't know. I want to see. Klay hasn't played since that. That game, what was it, Game 6, Toronto NBA Finals, which was 2019. I mean, that's 2 years from not playing NBA basketball. So I think the person in Steph Curry is not one to kind of look at what the other shooters are, unless you get to a point and the ownership is not willing to spend, or they're looking to tear down the roster. Then yeah, I could see that. But for right now, I don't see that happening.
And it looks like the Warriors are trying to be in win now mode, because they feel like they can get their players back and they'll be right in the thick of things. We still have to wait and see, how Klay Thompson looks, how James Wiseman looks. We see if they get a draft pick, how he's going to fit in with the team. A lot of question marks still, for the Warriors, but Curry seems like he's going to be loyal to them, but we'll see. We have a question, Bobby, from Hitish. He's saying, which craft is more interesting to watch? Chef Curry's cooking or Kyrie's dance? I think your two shots go down to the NBA.
I would say I'm a big food connoisseur, so I'm going to say the cooking part of it, because even you guys, I'm sure you watched the Boston game from Saturday night. I mean, when he's got it going, I don't care where he is on the court. If he's on the corner, double teamed, triple teamed, he's like almost watching a video game.
He really is, and he's whenever he catches the ball, Bobby, you have to really play good defense on him, because he's a threat to go off anytime. As if he just sees the ball go through the basket, whether it's an easy shot or a free throw, he can easily go off, and he's one of the most very exciting players to watch. And I hope that we do get that Luka and Steph play-in matchup, because I think it will add a lot of fireworks to the play-in tournament.
Yeah, and one team will probably be eliminated and will be sitting at home, which would be a disappointment, unless they're in that, how the play-in tournament works. It's it's kind of like a little mini pool where 7-8 plays each other, and then if that loser does not automatically get eliminated, they go on to play the winner of 9 versus 10, and that's kind of how that second seed is already determined. Whoever wins 7-8 is automatically in, but the team who loses gets another chance at it. So we'll see where the seeding shakes out in mid-May here.
Yeah, it's really close.
And talking about, I think the most talked about team this season is the Brooklyn Nets, and of course you can see from Shivam's attire that he's totally bought into that. Do you think? I mean, considering what they have been through with the injuries and, of course, the team composition, how good are they going to be in the postseason, and what are their chances?
Yeah, I'm not concerned from a chemistry standpoint. I know people have been throwing around the stats that like 7 games that this group has been together. Harden, Durant, and Kyrie. I think it all depends on health. If the three are healthy, come the first round or the second round, they're as good as any team out there. It's just a matter of is Harden going to be healthy when we get into hamstrings are tricky. I mean, they really are, and that's my biggest concern. It's not about the chemistry part of it. I think it's more about from a health standpoint. Two guys out there, let's say Kyrie and KD, can get you to an Eastern Conference Finals, I believe. I think you need the third to get you to an NBA Finals and win it all. Unless you are going to look at guys like Joe Harris and Jeff Green, the role players like that to really, Landry Shamet, to really step up here. So I think it's all just about health. I said it about all these teams, including the Lakers, who are about to get Anthony Davis back soon. I think Friday. Just get to mid-May in one piece. Like the regular season, you kind of poo-poo it a little bit. And I know when you work for ESPN or TNT and we have these games on, like we want to see the best of the best. But I can flip the script a little bit and say I've worked in the front office and I want my guys as healthy as they are come playoff time.
Yeah. Exactly. I 100% agree with you, Bobby. Health is the biggest thing, for the Nets. Like you said, they've only played 7 games together, 136 minutes. But I'm not worried because Kevin Durant's one of those players. He just needs like 10 to 15 shots a game. He's so efficient. He can give you a nice 30. James Harden's playing the point guard. He's doing a great job of balancing just between scoring and facilitating. But a silver lining, I think, with the big three, missing as much time is the role players are gaining a lot of confidence. You see that they're playing really well, the Joe Harris, the Landry Shamits, the Bruce Browns, the Nicholas Claxtons. And I think that confidence is going to carry in the playoffs where the big three in the big moments, they can really trust them. And I think those role players are going to be ready. And I think the big three, I think they have the one mindset is to win a championship. And I think they're going to be ready once playoff time comes.
Well, and I think it will help prepare them in case one of these players do get injured in the playoffs and you don't have that moment, like, what do we do next? And I think you just say, hey, we've been here before. We were here during the regular season. We went into New Orleans and, without KD and Harden and wind up winning. We've had some big games where we've had one player on the court. As you said, the role players have played great this year.
Yep.
It'll be interesting when we get to the playoffs because, as you guys know, the lineups get shortened. Instead of going 11 or 12 guys, you go 9 guys for most of it. And, it's going to be Steve Nash's first go at it from a playoff standpoint. It's really about not game 1, but game 2, game 3. How do you adjust? I remember so many games when I was in New Jersey and Brooklyn where we would look like an NBA finalist on game 1. We would, win by 20, and then all of a sudden teams make adjustments to you. It's kind of like a little bit of a mini series, and that's going to be the interesting thing for me is kind of Steve Nash when we get to the playoffs. But they've got a really experienced staff with Mike D'Antoni and Jack Vaughn, Ime Udoka. I mean, that staff they've got all head coaches basically on there. So that's so we'll see what happens when we get to the playoffs. But as I've said, you just got to get there in one piece. That's the goal for them.
Yeah.
But looking at Brooklyn, just from a technical point of view, how are they able to accumulate, of course, all this talent? Because of course there is a salary cap, the luxury tax limits, etc. But at the end of the day, you have almost 3 max players in the roster.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. They've got $167 million payroll and the salary cap's 109. So you're probably like, wait a minute. It doesn't take me to be a math expert to figure that out, right? You're 60 million plus over. And I'll give you the easy version is that it's a soft cap. It's not a hard cap like the NFL. But there is a cap, unlike Major League Baseball, where you can go out and spend, if you want to go out and get 4 pitchers who are making $30 or $40 million a year, you can go out and do that. It's just a matter if you want to do that. How Brooklyn put together their roster is they found these under the radar players first, the Joe Harrises, the Spencer Dinwiddies of the world, guys who were drafted and I call them second chance players that were looking for another opportunity. And they signed them on these low contracts. They got good. And what happens is it accumulates bird rights. So if you're on a roster for 3 years, you can exceed the salary cap. So those guys accumulated bird rights. The big damage, which was done, was in 2019, the summer of 2019, when the Nets had $70 million in cap space. They hit the lottery ticket. It rarely happens, right? Usually it happens through trades or you draft your own player and they develop into that franchise level player. When you get 2 all-NBA players in Durant and Kyrie Irving to come to you without giving up anything is remarkable. So that's kind of how the groundwork was set. And then, of course, DeAndre Jordan came there. So when those 2 players came and then DeAndre Jordan, then you were able to sign Karis LeVert to an extension at the time because he had bird rights. Spencer Dinwiddie to an extension because he had bird rights. Joe Harris this past offseason to a 4-year, $72 million contract because he had bird rights. And you can exceed the cap. You keep on adding. You pay a luxury tax. And that's, it depends on if your ownership group wants to do it. So now when you get to the Harden situation and a player wants out of Houston, all you have to do is get within 125% of James Harden's contract. So if James Harden is making $41 million, all you have to do is get within, I think, $33 million of that, right? So you have Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, Taurean Prince, and Rodion Kirks. Those 4 players equal $33 million. And it works so you can take back the Harden contract, and that's why you see these numbers keep on adding up. And they're playing by the same rules as all these other 29 teams. But as I said, they hit the golden ticket 2 summers ago when those two guys came for nothing. You didn't have to give up anything at all, except they just had to sign on the dotted line here. So you're going to see that with the Lakers. The Lakers have Anthony Davis and LeBron and Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Those guys are under contract, but their payroll could be, if they bring back Alex Caruso and Dennis Schroeder and Markieff Morris, all these they've got a ton of free agents. Like, they could have $170 million payroll just because players, when you accumulate these, what we call bird rights, 3 years on the roster, you can exceed the cap to bring them back up to a certain number. So that's how they did it. But as I always say, when we were in Brooklyn and when I was in Brooklyn in 2013-14, like, we had a $100 million in luxury tax penalty. Like, so basically how the luxury tax works is like the NBA acts as a bank. So if you're over the luxury tax by a certain amount, and there's a formula to that, you owe the NBA $100 million. So you wire them that money, and that money gets distributed to the other NBA teams. What's happened this year, and where teams like Brooklyn and Golden State and Philadelphia, some of the higher spending teams, the Lakers, Clippers, because there's a lack of revenue coming in, because there's less fans at the games, they are giving teams over the luxury tax a break. We call it a tax credit. Mm-hmm. So the Nets, $100 million payroll $100 million luxury tax might be like 40.
Wow.
So instead of Golden State spending on Kelly Oubre in a trade, and when it cost them like $80 million, probably cost them $30 million. Mm. So it helps I guess we call it the rich get richer a little bit here, in that regards here. But yeah, it's a complex set of rules, and it's kind of like a follow the process. But the Nets, hey, they built their roster the right way. But as I said, like, they got really fortunate that they had a roster where guys wanted to come 2 years ago.
Exactly. And it all really started with, D'Angelo Russell had that amazing year, with the Nets. They made the playoffs. That really enticed them. Joe Harris, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie. They had the core already and they were a well-run organization. People really respect Sean Marks. Sean Marks. So.
We're not related.
Yeah.
He's got an accent, I don't. It's funny though. A funny story though, real quick, and we'll move on to some else. When Sean got hired in Brooklyn in 2016, I believe, I think the AP, the Associated Press, had me as the new GM. And I was 1 year removed from Brooklyn, and I was getting all these texts, and I said, no, it's not me.
It's not me.
Media, different Marks. We're not related.
I wasn't the only one.
Sean Marks is a good man, and he's a great GM. But
he is.
Sometimes I wish I did have that New Zealand accent or that Australian accent there.
He was with the Spurs for the longest time. Sure. As a player and then as an executive, he did amazing things with the Spurs, and he's carried that with the Brooklyn Nets. He's well respected across the league, and he's a reason why they big free agents are coming to Brooklyn.
Yep.
And I think he worked with the Phoenix Suns as
well. And the Phoenix Suns also.
Yeah, he played in Miami when Pat Riley was there, and so he's learned from the best. When he took over in Brooklyn and a year after I'd gone, it was basically, the picks weren't there. You're basically kind of on ground zero. You can shape it. There was no pressure. You could shape it however the way you wanted. I always say, like, the hard part would have been like if Sean Marks was the general manager when that Boston trade happened.
Yeah.
So then you're chasing, right? You keep on chasing because you don't have the draft pick. So now you're maybe, instead of bottoming out and being a 15-win team, you're going to be a 32-50 and maybe just chase that 8th seed continually in here. Where with Sean, he had no fingerprints on that deal because he wasn't there. He could basically start from ground zero and really put his imprints on how this roster he sees fit. And 3 years later, they were able to get, those two guys.
Right. And yeah, he's definitely one of the best GMs in the league. He's doing amazing stuff. He's going to continue to, and he has the Nets in prime position to win a couple titles, Bobby. So we'll see what's gonna happen. But let's talk about the other team in New York. Let's get to a fan question first. Before we talk about the Knicks. Can we talk about why so many players are getting injured? What are some of your thoughts about that, Bobby? Because we have, of course, Jamal Murray with the Nuggets who just got surgery, Damian Lillard with the Blazers who just came back. Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers, of course, Kevin Durant and James Harden with the Nets, and LeBron and AD with the Lakers. And Joel Embiid also missed some time. So why do you think so many players are getting injured this year? Is it the schedule, or is there another factor that you see as a reason why?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a high number of ACLs this year. If you include the Jonathan Isaac ACL in the Orlando bubble, would be 5. With Spencer Dinwiddie, Jamal Murray, Thomas Bryant, Markelle Fultz, just to name a few guys. So that's a high for a year. I think the schedule has something to do with it. When you are playing a condensed 72-game schedule that started in around Christmas and that ends in mid-May, and you compound that with COVID, and you have teams that missed a chunk of the season, 2-week stretches where rosters were decimated. Now we're trying to catch up. You had Memphis and Miami playing 8 games in 12 nights.
Wow.
From the league's perspective, they will say, well, there's less travel. We're doing these little mini series, right? So if you have, example, Minnesota, the last couple nights was in Sacramento. So they didn't have to travel. They played the Kings. I don't think it was on a back-to-back, but it was on in separate nights. But they were there. It was almost like how baseball teams do it. So there's less travel from that perspective. The counter argument is that with COVID and the testing process, guys are at the facility longer than they would be in a previous year. Meaning, if you have to get a COVID test after a game, instead of sleeping in, you were going to the practice facility at, let's say, 9:00 in the morning. And that just disrupts your routine as far as like from a rest standpoint. And then you're doing it again, before the game here. The routines of players are totally out of whack. If a guy breaks a thumb or injures his hand, like let's say Marvin Bagley, is it because there's a shortened schedule? I doubt it. I think it's just a freak thing. I think what happens is that ankles, guys are tired. Guys' bodies. You're seeing a lot of teams resting players. Brooklyn did that with Kevin Durant on the second night of a back-to-back on a national TV game against Philadelphia.
Yeah,
where they are, and what also too is that you're so reliant on your sports science department that they are telling you this guy has too much his workload here. So I do think this shortened schedule plays a part of it. Fred VanVleet of the Raptors had a great comment over the weekend where he said, like, there's really no joy this year of playing, but he said on the other end, like, we all signed up for this. We had a vote. The Players Association had a vote. I think when you voted, you probably didn't realize the rigors that were going to go into that. So I hope we get to the playoffs and we get no injuries and we get a great play-in and you get to the NBA Finals. And then what will happen is that eventually we're going to reset here. So instead of free agency starting in the end of November, we're going to have free agency that starts in August. We're going to have the draft that starts at the end of July. And what you'll see is probably a normal NBA schedule next year when you're starting at the end of October, you're ending in mid-April, and then we just kind of get back on that cycle.
Yeah, also, exactly. And the Olympics is also this summer,
too. That's part of it. Yeah, the goal was to try to get it, the league did not want to be playing NBA Finals games and compete against the Olympics. I mean, let's face it. I mean, from a rating standpoint, it would have been a disaster. So you're over before the Olympics starts. I think the big thing is going to be who's going to play.
Yeah.
That's my, if we've got a Denver team that goes far into the playoffs with Jokic, in his home country or we might just have all the playing teams have put a roster together as far as with the Olympics, and probably would still do pretty well. Exactly. But I think the interesting thing was like who wants to take the summer off and give their body a rest here?
Because also another example, Philadelphia 76ers, Ben Simmons, playing for Australia. They're powerhouse. Serbia, like you said, they're pretty much a big powerhouse also.
Let's move on. I think we got to talk about I think you put up, ESPN put up a list of the top 25 under 25 players, and of course a lot of people had different opinions about it, but but what went in compiling that list?
Yeah, whenever I feel like anytime lists these days are like a hot topic, right? It could be about anything. You could go to the supermarket and say, I want list the 10 best fruit. And people will probably get in an argument somewhere, right? Like it doesn't matter. So the list of the top 25 players under the age of 25, and it's based on a prospect, based off future potential here, which is, I think, kind of got lost in the translation that when you look at like LaMelo Ball, number 3, and why isn't Devin Booker there? We looked at LaMelo Ball from a future potential standpoint where, 2 or 3 years from now, which is projecting out, which is extremely hard. And that's kind of how the list came together. There was 3 of us who put it together. It was myself, Kevin Pelton, who does a lot of our analytics, Mike Schmitz, who's our draft analyst. So you have a lot of different, you have a varying of a different opinion. So, for example, I had LaMelo Ball number 8 on my list. Both Mike and Kevin had him number 3. I had Devin Booker higher. I had RJ Barrett in the top 25. There are names here in there that that neither of them did or one did, and that's why they weren't there. I mean, I think the way that RJ Barrett has played in New York, he deserves to be on that list. The interesting thing, the one name that created a lot of, for me at least, controversy was the Jason Tatum listing there. And Jason Tatum is number 5 on the list overall. Last year, I had him number 2 on my own personal list, and I had him ahead of Zion Williamson. This year, I had him at number 12, okay? And I think for me, that is probably my biggest regret from that list because Jason Tatum had COVID, okay? Jason Tatum struggled when he came back from COVID, and he's made it well known that he has an inhaler. He couldn't, his conditioning wasn't great. He struggled. I should have taken that more into consideration, and I didn't. So I dropped the ball with that regards. If you ask a Celtic fan, they think I hate the Celtics and I hate Jason Tatum. And I say, well, wait a minute, I had him number 2 last year. Like, I don't hate Jason Tatum. And I think probably for me too, I probably got caught up on that future. I think if we just said, hey, give me your best 25 under 25 players right now, it would probably be Luka, Zion, Booker, Tatum, and Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. Like we'll say something like that, where whenever you put future, then you're asking us to project out. We don't have a crystal ball. And sometimes we dismiss what a player like Tatum or Booker or Mitchell have already done in their first 3 years when you're looking at that next. Michael Porter Jr. is a great name. I had him high on my list because of future. I am looking at what Michael Porter Jr. can do in the future.
Yeah, I can see that. And also John Morant, is another interesting name that could, that's right there that has a really high ceiling. Trae Young, he's a really high caliber player at a young age. But I wanted to ask you about De'Aaron Fox, Bobby. He's number 5 on this list. I know he's putting up some empty stats, right now because the Kings aren't doing as well, but I think it's more the situation than it is on him. I think he has a bright future, and I think he's continuing to improve his game. His outside shot is falling a lot more consistently. He always has that quickness to get to the rim. What do you think about De'Aaron Fox as an overall player, and what do you project his ceiling to be in the future?
Well, you're right. I mean, I think when you look at this Kings team that's going to miss the playoffs again, I don't think they've been there since 04, 05, I want to say, or 03. I mean, it's, you guys might not even been born back then. So, it's been a long.
I don't look that young.
It's been a long time here, and you're right. I mean, De'Aaron had played at a high level. They had gotten to about 3 games below 500. I think they were 22 and 25, and the wheels have now fallen off. And the worst thing you can do for a young player is play meaningless games down the stretch here.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is what's happening in Sacramento right now. I think they've lost like 12 of 14. They are in a complete slide, and there's no reason why this team should not be competing for at least the play-in tournament. I mean, that's, so Fox is going to be under the microscope. Whenever you sign a $165 million rookie deal, you are now expected to be the face of the franchise and a franchise-level player.
Yeah.
He hasn't made an all-star team yet. They haven't made the playoffs in his 4 years yet. He is going to be probably scrutinized a lot more going forward here, or as we've seen in this league, he probably has to be traded. I mean, like how contracts don't mean anything anymore. When you sign a 5-year contract, it doesn't mean anything. The money means something, but you dictate when you wake up one morning and say, I don't want to play for Brooklyn anymore, or I don't want to play for Sacramento anymore, and it becomes public. The likelihood is that you are going to be traded, just like James Harden was traded in Houston.
Yeah, exactly. And Fox will also be scrutinized because the Kings could have also had Luka Doncic.
Don't remind them.
Exactly. That Peja and Vlade Divac are not anymore, with the Kings anymore because they went away from their European player and they chose, Marvin Bagley instead. I wanted to move on, Bobby, and ask you about the Pelicans because they've been one of the most disappointing teams this season. They're right now, I believe, 3.5 games from the 10th spot. Zion is putting great numbers. He's doing everything that he can. He's facilitating, scoring inside the paint. Brandon Ingram, I think, is taking a little step back. Last year he was an all-star. They just play no defense right now, and it seems like they're kind of tuning out Stan Van Gundy. So what do you think about the Pelicans and their perspective going forward?
That's a good question. I'm actually writing. One of the things I'm doing now is I'm writing my off-season articles on teams that will come out sometime in mid-May on all 30 teams. And New Orleans is one of the teams I'm writing on just because I don't believe they will make the play-in tournament. And how I open it up is that Zion Williamson is on a rookie contract. He's in the middle of it. Do not take Zion Williamson for granted. Okay. We've never seen a player turn down a rookie max extension, right? He's extension eligible next offseason.
Next 2 years, right?
I believe he's next year he's eligible to sign. Next 2022, he's eligible to sign a new contract.
Yeah.
Do not take that for granted. Will he sign an extension? Probably. The likelihood is that we've seen it before. But they just went through a messy divorce with Anthony Davis. They do not want to do that again with Zion Williamson. Trust me. So although we can say the clock technically starts when he signs that second contract, the clock started 2 years ago. Like, to put the right pieces together. Like, this team is going to the lottery for the second straight year. They cannot go again next year. Like, they have to show that they are a playoff team. They've got a lot of interesting decisions this offseason. They've got Lonzo Ball, a free agent. Josh Hart is a free agent. You've got Eric Bledsoe sitting there making 18. Steven Adams makes, $14-15 million. So my question will be when will be the time when you take all those draft picks you've accumulated, right? From the Lakers, from the Bucks in the Drew Holiday trade. When is the time for you to go out there and make a bold statement move? Like, you just can't force anything, but when that next disgruntled all-star becomes available, maybe Bradley Beal, who knows? When is the time going to be to do that? And I think the development, the drafting is great, right? It's great. It's a way to do it. But when you have a franchise level player who just 2 days ago went on national TV and professed his love for New York City, and it was I had never seen that before, and it was a college recruiting trip. You got to start building now. You just can't keep on kicking the tire on top 5 or top 6 picks. So I'm bullish on the Pelicans. I had them as a playoff team this year. I at least
I had them too
as a playing team. I don't know what their identity is. I have no idea what their identity is. There are stretches of the year where they are the worst team in the NBA defensively. Okay. And then there are stretches where they're top 10 defensively, but they're 28th offensively. So what are you? Zion, you got point guard Zion, but you don't have any shooters around him.
Yeah.
So that's my big thing on the Pelicans. And David Griffin, who's their head of basketball operations, was there in Cleveland with LeBron. He knows the pressure of putting the right pieces around a franchise level player.
Absolutely. So talking about picks, I'm so intrigued by the strategy of the Oklahoma City Thunder. why would someone accumulate 34 draft picks for the next 6 years? It almost feels like that's like a basketball academy where you're gonna, draft young players, maybe train them, and then sell it to other teams.
Well, I think when you so it's 17 first, I think 17 seconds. I actually think that number is going to increase. Like I think like Eric Bledsoe would be like a destination in New Orleans. I mean, in Oklahoma City, if you can get a first round pick from the Pelicans, right? Like stuff like that, where teams probably will look to dump more contracts this offseason here. My rationale is why so many draft picks, and I would say all you need to do is hit on one. If you have 17 tries, all you need to do is hit on one James Harden, one Russell Westbrook, or one Kevin Durant. Or maybe you get two of them, or maybe you get three of them. Like this year's draft will be interesting because it's a loaded top 4 or 5 in there. If they get in the top 5, and they've already got a good foundation piece in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they've done a pretty nice job drafting of late. We'll see what happens with Al Horford. But you're right. I mean, this is not the NFL where we have 7 or 8 rounds, right? We only got 2 rounds. Mm-hmm. And you only got 15 roster spots and then 2 more for a 2-way contract. So it's a fascinating science experiment that we are going to watch over the next few, I guess 6 or 7 years here.
Yeah, and Hintish is saying OKC is Thanos. They hold the keys to the future. Use it or sell it. Yeah, we'll see. Like you said, they just have to hit on a couple. If they do, they can get back.
Yeah, so let's. I think we're almost about.
Mr. Kumar, I want to ask you one more thing before we get to the rapid fire section about the New York Knicks, Bobby.
Yeah,
we cannot go without asking about the New York Knicks. Are right now on an 8-game winning streak. One of the hottest teams in the NBA. Julius Randle is an all-star playing at an incredible level, may get some MVP votes. They have $50 million in cap space. What do you think about the New York Knicks this year, Bobby?
Yeah, it's funny. I was asked by ESPN Radio about a month ago, and it pained me to say this because I worked in New Jersey and Brooklyn for 20 years. Do I think the Knicks are cool again? And I said, yeah, I think the Knicks are cool again. They won the offseason when they hired Tom Thibodeau. Right, we always talk about grades for the draft and free agency, and we grade out as far as who did well. We rarely do it when a coach gets hired.
Yeah,
Coach Thibodeau has maximized the most he can get out of this roster. Mm-hmm. You've got an all-star in Julius Randle who is getting better. If you watch him against what he did in overtime against Atlanta last night, he is getting better.
Wow.
You have R.J. Barrett, who is I don't want to put him an all-star yet, but he is a budding player who is taking a huge leap here. I think what's the most fascinating thing is that they went out this past offseason and used their most of the cap space on guys on 1-year contracts. Mm-hmm. Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Elfrid Payton, Reggie Bullock. It could go one or two ways when you do that. Either those guys are going to be chasing their next contract, or they are going to buy in to what Tibbs is doing. And then you add Derrick Rose in a trade, and there is a complete buy-in, and they have an identity. They are a defensive-minded team built around their all-star and Julius Randle. And I said it like everyone was waiting for the wheels to fall off, and I said they don't go on losing streaks. Like they'll lose maybe 2. I think they lost maybe like a 4 or 5 in the beginning of the year, but their defense keeps them in games. Playing hard wins half your share of games. It's just the reality of it when you play hard, because there will be nights where you're going to catch other teams off guard here. And it's a great story. And they're a team that has $50 million plus this offseason in room to reshape the roster again. And it'll be interesting on what they do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think let's move on to some rapid fire. I mean, what's the significance of that 42 number in your social media handle?
Oh, I played college football, and I played football throughout my life. And so my high school number was 42. My college number was 8. So we did a little bit of 4 times 2 is 8. So we kept that 42 number. The funny thing is too, guys, when I started my Twitter account and I was still with the Nets, like I had no idea like what Twitter handles meant, or like if I would have had 200,000 followers like 10 years from when I started it. So I was like, Bobby Marks 42, like it's my football number here. And that's the reason why. There's no secret code to that.
It flows well, Bobby Marks 42. It has a good flow to it for sure. All right, so the next question.
Or you cap your age at 42 for the rest of your life, and that's what it is, right?
Plus five.
All right, New Jersey Nets or Brooklyn Nets?
My heart will always be in New Jersey. I mean, those teams that went to the finals with Jason Kidd grew up in northern New Jersey. I think I spent 17 out of the 20 years was New Jersey, and then 3 in Brooklyn. So it was an easier commute for me going from my house to our practice facility in East Rutherford compared to my house to Brooklyn. Let's just say that. Yeah. So it will always be New Jersey.
Sure. Media job or front office job?
Ooh. Oh, that's a great question. It depends on the season. I'm front office job, trade deadline, the draft, and free agency, media, the other 12 months. I sleep better now. I don't have to worry about if my team loses or if there's one of my players gets in trouble or my owner is complaining that our salary is too high and we only got 30 wins and everything that comes with it. I do miss the interaction of being part of a team in an office. Maybe they're not in an office, but trying to build a team with the draft and free agency trade deadline. I love my media job here because I'm kind of my own independent contractor where I come up with my own story ideas with the help of my editors. I will put my 10 hours in a day work-wise, but it doesn't have to be working from 8 to 6. It will be kind of throughout the day.
Much more spread out. We have other things you can do, throughout the day. Okay, I'm going to ask you about some awards, Bobby. Who is this year's MVP?
Nikola Jokic. All right. Our writer, Tim Bontemps, had a straw poll. I was one of those people who asked to vote on it, and I have Jokic. And I think for me, I have 3 criteria. Certainly the overall play on the court, both sides of the ball, team success. Denver's in the top 4 right now, even with the Jamal Murray injury, and durability. Hey, durability matters to me. If a guy can stay on the court healthy, and I'm not saying he has to play all 72 games, but he can't miss, 15 games here. Jokic does not miss games.
He's played every single game.
Minutes. Yeah. And he is a high level player. I think it's hard because there is no, I have my own criteria. There is no criteria, right? Is it the most valuable player to your team? It might be Chris Paul then, right? As far as what he's been able to do with Phoenix, or maybe even Devin Booker. Is it the best player in the league? It might be LeBron, but he's hurt. So it's everybody has their own kind of judgment. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid is another guy we'll make an argument for, but Embiid was hurt. We'll see what happens over the next 15, 16 games. But that's my take on MVP.
Yeah.
Your picks for the East Finals, West Finals, NBA Finals, and the title.
Well, for the East, I am going to pick Brooklyn, Philadelphia. Philly has the 1 seed. Brooklyn has the 2 seed. A Brooklyn Milwaukee matchup in the semis will be fantastic. Even a Philly New York or Philly Miami potentially in the semis will be interesting.
Yeah.
I picked the Lakers in the beginning of the year. I just think when those 2 guys are healthy, AD and LeBron, and they're another team that has relied on their role players, which will benefit them a lot with their injuries. They are tough to beat. I respect Utah and Phoenix, and the Clippers are interesting, and certainly Denver, teams like that. But I'm going to say the Lakers in the finals. And as far as a conference finals in the Western Conference, it's going to be interesting if we get a Denver Lakers 4-5 matchup. So that means I'm counting out Utah already, and I think we might get an LA Western Conference finals between Clippers and Lakers.
I really hope. I was hoping last year and it didn't happen, so I'm hoping it happens this year.
Yep.
And, who wins the final?
The big question: who wins the final?
A healthy Nets team. That's who wins. But the question is, can they get there healthy, right? I mean, that's a lot of games to be played. I mean, the finals is in July. We're a long ways away from that. So
I think you're biased. I think you're biased here.
No, Mr. Kumar. He's the expert. You heard it from the expert. Bobby Marks said that Brooklyn Nets are going to win. I'll take it.
No, he was the assistant GM of the Brooklyn Nets. He's going to pick the Brooklyn Nets.
I'm taking it to my bank, Bobby Marks, what you say that the Brooklyn Nets are going to win.
Yeah, we're looking for it. I think the playoffs are going to be really great this year, especially when we get some fans back in these arenas here.
Yes. Last couple questions. Favorite Indian food?
Oh, I'm not a big spicy Indian food guy. I got a sensitive stomach, so to that, I'm a big Thai food fan. I love Thai food. I don't even know if I've even experimented with Indian food, so that's going to be my
living
next.
In New Jersey.
Even in New Jersey, I know. Even in New Jersey, I don't know if I've even experimented.
All right, Mr. Kumar, you want to ask him the last question?
Of course. Who do you pick, Patel or Kumar?
How about both? How does that sound?
Perfect.
That's what everybody answers. You know, we just want to create a controversy, like in terms. Somebody picks like one individual, you know.
They all want to pick me, Mr. Kumar, but they don't want to have any hurt feelings, you know. So that's the politically correct answer.
Yeah.
All right.
So you come out from the east, I come out from the west. Let's battle it out on the court.
That's fine. I think the people that signed my checks would probably be very happy with a Brooklyn LA finals.
Oh yeah, I think the ratings will go off.
Yep, I agree.
Ratings will go through the roof. You know, we'll see what's going to happen. But Bobby, before you leave, we have a little parting gift from the Indian audience. We're going to show a little graphic before you leave, and Mr. Kumar is going to kind of explain it. So.
Yeah, it's like from a very old movie. It was named Bobby. So we just, of course, morphed the image of, you know, the actor who was the hero of that movie and put yours. So I think you can always come to India and act in a Bollywood movie.
There you go.
I love it. Maybe when I land at the airport, they'll recognize me from that.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, hopefully. But we look forward to seeing you in India. Hopefully we have the NBA India games next time. So probably you could come here to watch those games.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Thank you so much, Bobby. And where can the audience find you on social media?
Yeah, so my Twitter feed is BobbyMarks42, and then I also do same for Instagram also, where I put up a lot of fun videos and a lot of the time talking about Kai's recent contracts. So they're kind of give you a little bit of a Q&A and try to, you know, I don't overwhelm you with salary cap terminology. I just kind of when a player signs, I'll give you my take on it and how the contract works.
Yeah. Well,
absolutely. Thank you so much. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bobby, thank you. Wow, Mr. Kumar, we covered a lot, and we could have even kept going further. There's a lot more questions I didn't get to, but it was awesome, amazing conversation with Bobby Marks. We got to hear his insights about, you know, being the free agent, you know, negotiations, about his thoughts about all the different teams in the league, how the Nets signed James Harden, Mr. Kumar. But is it time for our favorite section?
It is time for our favorite section. Of course, it's going to be a little bit of a shortened section because of the time limit, but it is the spiciest section. So let's spice it up.
Who?
Welcome back, viewers, to the spiciest section on YouTube, the Patel and Kumar NBA Talk Show Indian Tadka section. So it's going to be a little bit of a unique section here. Actually, we are coming out with a new show, and that's what we're experimenting with, you know, coming Wednesday, 28th of April. We're going to be having a live watch party, and we're going to have the Patel and Kumar live watch party for the Golden State Warriors versus the Mavericks game, where we're going to be giving a little bit of play-by-play and our analysis throughout the second half of that game, which starts at 8 a.m. India time. So it's going to be the PNK live watch party. Are you excited for it, Mr. Patel?
Oh, I cannot wait. We've been putting this in the works. Me and Mr. Kumar are going to be there live, during the NBA game in the second half, giving our, analysis, reaction, to the game. Also talking about some other NBA news. I cannot wait. It's going to be very casual, very fun. We're going to just be sitting around, relaxing, watching the game, Mr. Kumar. And you can watch it, like he said, on Wednesday, April 28th at 8 a.m. onwards on the Eclavia's YouTube channel. And be sure to continue to put your comments for this Indian Third section, and also next week when we are going to be there during the Warriors and the Mavericks. Luka versus Steph, Mr. Kumar. I could not find a better matchup.
Hey, LeBron predicted that there is a thunderstorm coming, and it is a thunderstorm. It is the PNK Live watch party. That's the thunderstorm, right?
Oh, man, exactly. It's coming to the Indian audience Wednesday, April 28th at 8 a.m. I cannot wait. What a fantastic matchup, Mr. Kumar. And this will be a chance for everybody to see me and Mr. Kumar outside of the show setting, just sitting back, kicking back, relaxing, and watching some great basketball.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we have some news from FIBA about India's future games. The men team is going to be playing the qualification tournaments for the FIBA Asia Championships. They play the last final qualification rounds, which is going to be in Jakarta, Indonesia, in the month of August. And of course, we also have the under 16 championships have been announced, which is going to be taking place, as I mentioned, 12th and 14th August 2021. The under 16 boys and girls championships are also announced, which are going to be playing in Iran is the boys and Lebanon is the girls. The dates have still not been finalized yet, but I hope the under 16 teams are gearing up towards that as well. And on top of that, India is going to be the host of the FIBA Asia Women's Championship. I think this is the third time in a row that India is going to host it. Of course, we also have the Australia and New Zealand teams who are now part of the Asian contingent, who also going to be participating in that championship. This picture is a file picture of when we won the level B and qualified for level A. But once again, we're going to be hosting the FIBA Women's Asia Cup.
Yeah, some exciting basketball news, in India. A lot of great tournaments, a lot of exciting, stuff happening in the future. And it's a great time to, be there. And if you want, more information about Indian basketball news, no other place you want to be besides Ekalavyas. They have all the great coverage there. So be sure to check out their channel, YouTube channel, and their website, Mr. Kumar.
Yeah, and please do not, forget to subscribe to the YouTube channels, Ekalavyas and Patel Pick and Roll Sports. Shivam, what is the shoe collection behind you? Do you own a shoe shop?
I'm trying to, Mr. Kumar. I'm trying to continue to get my shoe collection up. Right now, like I have a couple of Jordans, after the documentary, Mr. Kumar, I went on a crazy spending spree of some Jordan shoes. I have some LeBrons, Kyrie's, KD. So I'm trying to expand my shoe collection, Mr. Kumar, so we'll see. But it's a nice little shoe game I have right now, but I'm continuing to expand it,
I think I got to tell your dad to cut your pocket money. You've been spending in all these shoes.
Man. Oh, hey, what can I say? I'm a huge basketball fan, Mr. Kumar. I buy shirts, I have a lot more shirts, and I buy shoes. So what can I say? But shout out to everybody watching. You're watching the show. Thank you so much for putting your comments in the chat section below. Want to thank Bobby Marks. And like Mr. Kumar said, be sure to subscribe to the Ekalavyas YouTube channel and the Patel Pick and Roll Sports YouTube channel. But we're going to end on a fun note, Mr. Kumar. We have a couple of memes we want to show as we get to the end of the show. And thank you, Mr. Freak, about the shoes.
Yeah. And before we end, we also want to, give on a somber note, one of the administrators in India, Mr. Dhaneshwaran, who was the chairman of the Tamil Nadu Basketball Association for a very long time. He passed away just a couple of days ago. He was a former Indian national team player, and of course, a long-serving administrator of the Tamil Nadu Basketball Association. So, extremely sorry to hear about this news, and may his soul rest in peace.
Yep, rest in peace. He made a great impact on basketball, Mr. Kumar, in India, and he'll definitely be missed. And rest in peace to him, and prayers to his family. We lost an important piece, in Indian basketball history. So rest in peace.
Yeah, so we are coming towards the end of the show, so we will end the show on a lighter note. We're going to have a couple of memes, which is the first meme is, I think, the Luka Doncic meme. He almost was like a snake going through the charmer and scoring that buzzer beater. I forget against who. Against
Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was against our friend Taylor Jenkins and the Grizzlies, but it was a great shot.
Of course, you can follow NBA on Instagram to view more memes, and we also have another meme, which is a Steph Curry meme. I think the Indian audience is going to probably understand it better. Yeah, sometimes he does feel like God. He can just shoot anywhere on the court.
Mr. Kumar, when he walks into the arena, he's in range. You have to guard him. He can shoot from anywhere. So Steph Curry, shout out to Steph Curry, and shout out to the Warriors for continue to get in, playing well and playing the play-in tournament. But we'll see what's going to happen going forward, Mr. Kumar. So we'll see.
And
let's give it one last shout out to our live commentary. We're going to be doing our live commentary again Wednesday, April 28th. From 8 a.m. onward, from the second half onwards, me and Mr. Kumar are going to be watching the Dallas Mavericks versus Golden State Warriors game. Luka against Steph Curry, Steph Curry, a preview of the play-in tournament. You do not want to miss this, and you can watch it on the Eclavias YouTube channel.
Absolutely, and it's going to be exciting. It's a new format that we are trying out the first time. It's going to be the Golden State and the Mavericks on 28th of April. Be sure to tune in 8 a.m. in the morning. You may be watching the game. You may not be watching the game, but you're expected to be on that YouTube channel at 8 a.m.
Yep, and we'll see you there, Mr. Kumar, and we'll see everybody else there. And thank you so much, everybody, again for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for Bobby Marks for dropping his knowledge. And me and Bobby are going to be right, Mr. Kumar. I finally get another Nets fan on the show.
Well, you're lucky. I mean, you're just lucky that he was an assistant GM of the Brooklyn Nets. But I also want to tell all the Indian audience, please stay safe, be home, and wear your mask, socially distance yourself, because the things are a little bit scary outside, and we don't want to, get you affected by COVID. So please, maintain discipline. That's all we can do now. So stay safe, everybody.
Yep, stay safe. And until then, signing out. We'll see you all next time.